We are going to talk a little bit about the agenda for today. So I'm going to talk with you about class and local leads. And then we're going to go into program monitoring, then eligibility documentation, child waivers. We're going to talk about your records and screening requirements, staff requirements, professional development, classroom standards, parent and community engagement. And so it is going to be a little bit of a long day. We've got lots of things to cover, but I want to make sure that everyone knows if you have questions at any time today, please feel free to put those in the chat box. Our team will be monitoring that. We'll be answering your questions. I'm going to go through a few slides and then Miss Michelle Davis is going to take over for most of today's training. So I'll be answering in the chat box. Bridgetta will be here answering in the chat. So if any questions come up, please feel free to reach out. You can just pop them in there, or you can reach out to us directly after the training. Tammy, will there be a way to print out the slides? So when we post them on the website, we will post them in PDF format, so you can print those if you would like. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think that now would probably be a good time. We're going to start talking about class. I'm going to go through a couple slides and then I'm going to start that poll because I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for everyone to get into the meeting that may be a few minutes late. So I'm going to start with class and local leads. As you all know, Arkansas Learns envisions a seamless early childhood system here in our state. And if you've been on any provider calls over the last year, you know how important this project is for us to make sure that OEC is making those big transitions, that we're doing whatever we can to make it seamless. And part of that is local leads. And so we have a QR code here for our local leads slide. And well, I'm going to wait till we get to that. Michelle, you can go to the next one. There it is. We've got a QR code that you can use. It's also on our OEC website. If you go to local leads, you can find all the information about who your local lead is in your community. And so local leads is part of Learns. It's really created for finding out locally what the need is in your area. So they are tasked with doing things like child counts, the coordinated funding request, coordinating class observations. You've heard lots about local leads, but if you're a new coordinator, this may be something that is new for you. If you do not know who your local lead is, please go to our website and you can look by your community, your county, find out who that person is. It may be a community organization or a different partner based on what county you're in, and their contact information will be there as well. So please utilize your local lead. They're a great resource. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We'll make sure and get you that information. But as we start thinking about planning going into next year and years after that, when we're looking for child counts, and anything else that maybe we need from that specific community, that's who we'll go through. So they have an annual planning cycle. And as we kind of talked about with the fall and winter, that's when they're going to start doing those child counts. They're going to start looking for coordinated funding requests. So if you think that you could serve more ABC slots, or you're looking to maybe start serving infants and toddlers and you haven't done that before, start with your local lead. They will be a great resource for planning for you. Becky, you said you can't see any slides. Let me see here. It might be in your Zoom settings where you have to make the slides part bigger at the top of your screen. Try that and see if you can find a setting. And we are going to talk a little bit about class resources. And I do see a question. We'll go ahead and answer that question about class. So you have 3 staff that have taken class training and they are now observers. Well, congratulations. That's very exciting. Will they be required to observe other programs? So, no, your observers for your program do not have to observe any other sites. Um, they could if they wanted to, and you wanted to work with the other community programs, but they're not required to observe any other programs. And so, talking about class, we have a website dedicated to class resources here at OEC. And again, there's a QR code on your slides here. But if you also go to the OEC website, you will see the class tab. This is going to have different trainings that are scheduled to happen. It's got lots of resources and guides. It's got some local lead information, different protocols, and what the class observation system looks like. So if you're interested, if you have not already, go visit that website and you can find out all you need to know about upcoming trainings. Okay, and then the next thing that I'm going to talk about before Michelle takes over and starts with our program information is COPA rollover. So as of now, we are getting ready to schedule COPA rollover. For those of you that are new to ABC, this is when the COPA system will be closed down for a period of time to prepare for the next school year. So right now we are planning to have the system closed July 1 to July 10th. And if the system is ready to be brought back up beforehand, we will do so. Otherwise, it will be closed down July 10th. We will put a notice up on COPA as well, and we'll be in touch with COPA support to just make sure that we get everything transitioned over for the next school year. For those of you who are participating in ABC Summer, when we get the rollover done, you'll re-enroll your summer children. They'll be just back on your waiting list and make sure they're assigned in their correct classroom. And then you'll be able to begin entering your summer attendance for that one, the first of the month until the 10th. And those of you who maybe already have applications, if you've used the online portal or you're just gathering paper applications, you will be able to go ahead and start entering those for the next school year. Okay. All right. I am going to turn it over to Michelle now. She's going to talk to you about a couple of functions in COPA that we think will be helpful. And then I'm going to get in the chat and answer any questions. So, Michelle, I'm handing it over to you.
All right. So I want to touch a bit about enrolling for next year to make sure that you search for both the family and the child before you start an application. When searching for the family, of course, you want to use the family name, but you also want to search for the primary caregiver and the secondary caregiver and search the entire database. And then when you find someone, compare their information to the information on the application. So look at date of birth, any siblings that are listed that you know of, and possible address, even though we do know those can change. So I know this slide's a little messy, but when you're searching for the child, don't use the date of birth and don't start out using the Social Security number or the family name. Just use the child's first and last name, and again, search the entire database. And then verify the information that's on the application to see if that looks like the same child. Birth dates have been entered wrong in COPA. There have been cases when different Social Security numbers from siblings have been, used accidentally. And then, of course, you can always contact us at COPA support.mail account at ade.arkansas.gov for any help that you need when enrolling children. Please make sure that you're specific. If your address is not, excuse me, if your email address does not have your name, please include your name, your program, and your site if that's not all in your email address. Okay. All right, so we're going to touch on program technical assistance and audits. Um, you will not have a, excuse me. There you go. You will not have an early childhood program specialist assigned to you. So any of us will be able to assist you. Now, the best way to get the help that you need for a particular subject is to email your questions to COPA support. There are some of our team that deals mainly with finance. There are others of us that deal with program issues. And so we all have access to this email. So if you email COPA support, we can direct that email to the person best able to answer it. Okay, so program audits. There are several different types of program audits. First off, your ABC site requirements will be looked at during your licensing visit. We have access to the licensing database, so we can look at all of their visits. ABC Early Childhood Program Specialists, we're going to be reviewing all the non-classroom site-specific requirements, and we'll be doing this through a desk audit. So that requires that you guys email us information or upload it into COPA eDocs. There are also ABC fiscal reviews, also done online. And you'll be required again to either email or upload information into COPA. And then we contract with Children's Hospital to review home visiting programs. Now they'll be looking for ABC requirements and child eligibility as with the national affiliation requirements. They will be entering their visits in COPA, so we'll also have access to those. Okay, so we're going to take a minute and we're going to talk about last year's auditing, specifically the ABC desk audits. Hold on one moment. There we go, silenced my phone. I apologize for that. So last year we audited 96 sites, and there were 796 findings. And if you're blown away by that, we were also blown away by that. That is not a good thing. So the average number of findings per site was 8.21. Now you may be asking yourself, well, why were there so many findings? Well, there were two main reasons. And the first one, documentation was not uploaded into eDocs. Now, if I could make this thing spin in and flash and I don't know, whatever it takes to get attention, but please, 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 when we ask you to upload documents, please upload those documents. And if you need any assistance, contact us and we will be glad to help you. So we're going to go over the main findings, excuse me. Just a few of the main findings that we had. So child eligibility. We audited 43 sites and there were 93 findings with 7 open action plans. Now what that means is, so of those 43 sites, we found 93 citations, findings. There were 93 frameworks that were not met. Now, do I think that there were 93 children that were not eligible? No, I don't. Um, there were times that we had to go back and ask for documents to be uploaded. Um, but that takes a lot of time. That takes our time and your time, a lot of back and forth. And we don't have time for that. You guys don't have time for that. So no, it the main let me try this again. So there are 93 findings. No, I don't believe there were 93 children that were not eligible. The 7 open action plans, that were findings that were not corrected during the year. So there may have been 7 children during the audit because they could not produce those records so we could verify those children were eligible. Staff qualifications. Now, I know that finding good staff is hard. That is why we have SQP plans. So out of 48 sites, there were 105 findings with 7 open action plans. Again, that means we found 105 frameworks that were not met. And mainly this again was due to lack of documentation. We require that staff documents, the credentials be uploaded. They need to be current. We require that staff contracts be uploaded for every year. And then professional development plans, and we're going to talk more about those later. So if you have a staff member that is not qualified, please send us an SQP application. And again, we'll talk more about what that involves, but we can get them on a plan for 2 years where they can continue to work in your ABC program while getting their credentials. Child records and screenings. Now, this is not COPA records and screenings. This is the actual documents. So out of those 96 sites, we had 71 that did not upload all of the requested documentation. So there were 199 findings with 12 open action plans. The child records we require are things like the application, developmental screenings, health screenings, referrals, IEP information. We'll send out a letter that has all of that information that we need. So please, please, please read that letter and upload those requested documents. So, of course, you probably all know the biggest reason for findings is reporting, COPA reporting. Out of the 96 sites, there were 85 cited with 255 findings and 11 open action plans. Again, the open action plans are citations that were not corrected. This is things like entering the health screenings, entering developmental screenings in COPA, entering IEP information or referral information, entering your staff information. And we realize that COPA is a lot of work, and we totally understand that. So if you have a big program, please train your staff to help you enter that information. And we are going to be producing COPA trainings and posting those, so they'll be available to everyone. Okay, so when records aren't uploaded, it causes something I like to say is a cascade effect. So here we have Betty Sue's completed application was not uploaded into eDocs. So she is cited for not having a completed and updated application in the child records. Now, you may have that, but because it was not uploaded, we can't verify that. So that may cause another citation. We may not be able to verify that she is eligible for the program. even if you have income documentation uploaded, if we don't have the application or if it's not completely filled out, we can't compare the date to the application to the uploaded financial documentation. If the family members and the household members are not entered, then we can't calculate whether they meet the income guidelines. And so the third one, we can't verify that you have correctly calculated income or that you have been able to verify that they are eligible. Because if we can't verify that a child is eligible, then how do we know that you could verify? So please, it's very important to have all of those documents, requested documents, uploaded. Another issue that I want to talk about is ratios. Now, we didn't have a lot of findings with ratios, but we are having questions and there's confusion about ratios. So birth to 18 months, ABC ratios would be 1 staff to 4 children. For 18 months to 36 months is 1 staff to 7 children. And then from 3 years to 5-year-old, not kindergarten eligible, it's 1 to 10. Group sizes are double. So 2 to 8, 2 to 14, and 2 to 20. ABC does not have a transitional age. Licensing will let you enroll children 2.5 to 3-year-olds into either a toddler or preschool classroom. ABC does not allow that. We do not have transitional ages. You're either 2 years old or you're 3 years old. So you must maintain a ratio of 1 to 7 or 2 to 14 if there is a child under 3 years old in the classroom. You do not have to have a child. So before, we had ABCSS, that's new money that was an addition to the ABC grant, where a child had to be 3 years old by August the 1st to be enrolled in a pre-K classroom. Well, you can have a toddler that turns 3, say on September 1st, and they're in your toddler classroom. Once they turn 3, they can be moved into pre-K, the 3-year-old classroom. If you have a child, you just have an application, and the child turns 3 on September 1st, then you can enroll that child once they turn 3 into the pre-K classroom. So that is, like I said, we've had a lot of questions about that and a lot of infant and toddler that's new to several of our programs. So just keep that in mind when you're enrolling children.
Hey,
Okay,
Michelle,
so
I'm gonna go ahead and while we're kind of in between these two topics, I'm gonna go ahead and send out the poll. I think everyone
okay,
is here, and just let everyone fill that out, giving their contact information real quick.
okay.
Okay, everyone should see a poll on your screen. And this is going to have you fill out your name, your title, your program information, your PDR number. So go ahead and fill out that poll as we continue on with the training. Uh, Paula asked, Michelle, will you go back one and just put the
Mhm.
ratio slide back up as we're letting everyone fill out that poll? Okay.
And also let me touch on the importance of this poll. Last year, we had several people who didn't register for the training, but they joined in with, a colleague that had registered. And so because they weren't registered, we didn't know to give them credit. So please fill out your name, um, and your title and your program name, um, and just let us know that you're here so we can pull that up and we can give you credit for being here. It
I
looks
see
like
a
we're getting a
couple of
lot of
you. Yeah, I
good
saw a couple of
response.
people said that you lost the poll. So I'll try and relaunch that. Let's see. Okay, give just a few more minutes. Sierra, where can you find your PDR number? So that would be on the Professional Development Registry website. I can put a link in the chat. If you have not already signed up for that PDR number, that's where you can go to do that.
Okay, are we ready to move on? It looks like people
Yeah, it
have
looks like most of it did, but we will relaunch it again before the end of the training. So if you did not get to finish filling it in, we will relaunch that again. So no worries if you didn't get to it this time. We'll make sure and everyone gets to do it again. All right, go ahead, Miss Michelle.
okay. So he okay. So next we're going to talk about non-compliance plans. Um, I know it kind of seems like we're addressing audits backwards, that we're discussing consequences before we talk about the auditing procedures. But I want to catch you guys up on some changes while we're all fresh, and because this is something that's new. So when I presented these numbers to OEC management, they just about fell out of their chairs. So um, there were questions concerning the open action plans, what steps are going to be taken to ensure all action plans are completed. So here, um, so when we audit a program and we send you your action plans, you are given a timeline in which to complete those action plans. If your action plans are not completed, most of the time we send out a reminder, hey, your action plan isn't completed, please, please take a look at that and complete it within the next 24 hours. If those action plans are still not completed, the first step is going to be a notice of non-compliance, and that will be sent to coordinators and owners, and you'll have 60 days to complete the action plan. The second notice is sent of non-compliance to superintendents, coordinators, and owners. You will have 15 days to complete your action plan, and you may possibly get a second audit for the following year, because we try to do audits like every other year, every 3 years of programs. So it may be that you might get back-to-back audits. Okay, and
Hey, we got
then
a good question,
mhm.
Michelle, if you just want to answer it kind of live, because I think everyone probably could benefit from this. So, after school starts, how long do we have to get everything uploaded in COPA on the students?
60 days. Yeah, 60 days from their date of enrollment. And also, I have a slide somewhere in here. Only upload documents when requested. There is a finite space in COPA. Um, and so don't upload, all of your children's records. When we send you a notice of the audit, you'll get exactly what you need to upload. All right. And so the final step could result in a Holden ABC payment, repayment of funds if you have ineligible children, barred from participating in summer programs, and the possibility of non-renewal of Arkansas Better Chance grants. Okay. So now we're going to discuss the ABC program desk audits. Okay. So when you get a desk audit, we're going to be reviewing programmatic documents, classroom lesson plans, staff credentials and professional development, child eligibility, and COPA data, along with other requirements. Again, you'll be sent a email notification letter, desk audit deadlines and start dates, the children's names that will be audited, documents to be uploaded, let's see, dates for the submitted lesson plans. We'll send you a desk audit tool. So you'll know exactly what we're looking at. You don't have to return this back to us filled out. It's for your benefit. And we'll also be sending you the COPA required fields again within 60 days of child enrollment. Those need to be entered. Okay, so before school starts, you should already have documents uploaded. The parent handbook, the program calendar, and we do need an actual calendar, not a list of dates, because we do count calendar days to make sure that your program is going 178 days. Kindergarten transition plan, if that's not in the handbook. The community collaboration plan, or MOUs, memorandums of understanding. And memorandums of understanding, they can be done for more than a year. You can make those for 2, 3, 5 years if you would like. And that way you don't have to continuously upload those. Updated staff credentials and SQP agreements. Staff employment agreements, so they're contracts. Professional development plans. Documentation of any professional development not in PDR for the previous years. And please be specific. We need to know what the training was about. Was it early childhood? How many hours it was, and who attended. And then SQP documentation will be updated throughout the year. So there's progress reports that are due in July and January. All right, so the requested child documents to be uploaded is the completed and signed and dated application, and we need their initial application. Children in ABC, they can be enrolled for a long period of time. They do not need to be at this time requalified. So upload the initial application and the initial eligibility documentation. We need the actual documents that were used to qualify the child. We need pay stubs, tax documents, court documents, IEPs, etc. Whatever you use to qualify the child, that's what we need. So last year we had several programs that just uploaded the income worksheet and not the actual documents. And we can't verify. We have to have the actual documents. We need a birth certificate or hospital record. Oh, and let me just add, we're going to go over later on the acceptable documentation for each of these categories. So you don't have to worry about that. We are going to be going through all of that. We needed a complete developmental screening. So you can just upload their result page. It needs to be dated. It needs to have the child's name, who performed the screening. We need to know the scores. And we need to know, did they pass or did they fail? And if they were referred. You also need to upload health screenings, and this is their well-child checkups or physicals and their vision and hearing screenings. Please upload referral documentation for the children. Some programs, some co-ops, they have their own forms that they like you to fill out. Others do not. I've had people tell me, they're in the same building as we are. They walk by and we're like, hey, can you test so-and-so? Just shoot them an email, a follow-up email, and that can be used as documentation that you refer the child. We need a copy of the IEP or IFSP. Again, you can just upload that front page that has the dates that the IEP or the IFSP, the dates it's good for. We need signed documentation of receipt of the parent handbook and documentation to verify that no religious activity has occurred or is being paid for by public funds. There is a message that is in our rules and requirements, a statement that we recommend that you use. It's close to the end of that. But yes, if you could use that statement, that is what we recommend. Other requested documentation are lesson plans for the week of the review. Now, it's not necessarily will be the week of review. Sometimes if it's like a holiday or something that we may go 2 weeks back. But we do require that lesson plans be uploaded. And again, here is, do not upload any child files unless they were requested. Okay, so we're going to be reviewing some of the COPA reports that we look at. Tomorrow, I'll be showing you how to run these reports because you can filter them and there are memorized reports that will help you. So we use report 201, the monthly attendance report. 203, enrollment and transition history report. Or you can also use 204, detailed enrollment report. 601, staff information report. 204, the health screening status report. Developmental screening report 456. And 459, the overall, the referral reports. So we're going to go over details over how to run those reports. We have posted on our website the required COPA fields, so you'll know what needs to show up on these reports. Okay. So additional monitoring information. So you'll also be reviewed for the following child care license visits for the past 12 months. The most current classroom assessment. So we're talking about class. Staff professional development registry. So we're going to be looking at PDR and all of the trainings you've had for the previous year. Verification of receipt of your final disclosure audit for the previous year, and mid-year and final expenditure reports. So the end of the review notification. So after the review, we'll be contacting the coordinator and or the site contact with the action plans that were developed for improvement, and TA provided to help you facilitate those completion of the action plan. Again, once you receive this notification, you can contact us, and if you need any clarification or any help, we're happy to assist you. So on the action plans, they are located in COPA in the site monitoring tab, and only those, I believe, with admin access. There may be some with manager access that also have the site monitoring tab. But the plan includes the framework or the section of the ABC rules that applies to, the non-compliance indicator. So the framework may be child eligibility, and the non-compliance indicator may be were all children eligible for the program. The due date of when the compliance plan needs to be completed, any comments that we may have, and the person responsible for ensuring the plan is completed. So we'll tell you in the action plan exactly what you need to do in order to complete the action plan. So here is just an example. I know it's kind of tiny of what an action plan looks like. So the comment section, we noticed that Bo Peep's credentials were not uploaded in COPA. So the action plan is for you to upload Bo Peep's credentials in staff eDocs. And here's your due date. And then we have the status is in progress. So the coordinator shall email the program specialist when all action plans are completed, because we do not get notification when your action plans have been completed. When you've uploaded documents or such, we don't get that information. Any extensions must be requested before the original due date. So this is not an extension for you to get the documentation. You should already have the documentation. This is an extension if you are on vacation. If your computer has been sent to the shop for several days. Most of the action plans, you have 10, 15, sometimes 30 days to complete them. Program specialists will verify that all action plans are completed within the specific time frame. So we'll go back and we'll look at see when the document was uploaded, and make sure that it is before the action plan. And then further action may be taken against the program if action plans are not completed by the due dates. And so we discussed that with the non-compliance notification. So this is what the action plan will look like when it's completed in COPA. We have that it's a verified completed, the completion date, and this shows up on the visit when we first look at COPA. When you first open the site visit, it's there, so we can just look at it and see, yes, we verified that it was complete. This is something that ABC program specialists complete. This is not something that coordinators or anyone who has access needs to complete. This is something because we have to verify that that documentation was uploaded before we complete it. Okay, so let's talk about home visiting. Again, like I said, we contract with Children's Hospital. They'll be looking at all of the affiliated home visiting requirements. They will also be looking at ABC requirements. So they'll be looking at the same documentation that we do, the eligibility, the screenings, they're going to make sure that everything is there in the child's records. I also want to touch on that visits cannot be conducted by phone. So, home visiting educators, I know a few years back during COPA, I'm sorry, COVID, um, that we allowed some home visits to be done by phone. Those can no longer be conducted by phone. That is not allowed. That is not considered a visit as far as ABC is concerned. Okay, so now we're going to talk about child eligibility. And let's see. So all eligibility will be we'll be using the ABC requirements or the old money requirements, the original ABC eligibility. This is for birth through 5 years old, excluding kindergarten eligible children. So now all programs can use all eligibility factors and they can service birth through 5 years old. Okay, so ABC eligibility factors. A family gross income not exceeding 200% of the federal poverty limit. And again, we will be looking at the documentation that is needed further down in the training. It has a developmental delay as identified through screening by a cooperative or an LEA. So we've had some questions about this. Social emotional screenings where they look at the risk factors, that is not an ABC eligible document. It has to be a failed developmental screening that is done by the cooperative or the LEA. So after the child has been referred, that would qualify a child. Parents without a high school diploma or a GED. And notice I said parents. It has to be both parents without a high school diploma or a GED. Now, if it's only one parent on the application, we only need that parent's proof of have not completed high school or GED. We're not going to make you go, hunt down the other parent to get that information. So if both parents are on the document, the application, then we need verification that both parents did not complete high school. If only one parent is on there, we only need that parent's. So if a child is eligible for service under IDEA, a low birth weight, below 5 pounds, 9 ounces. We know those preemies can have problems, and so they benefit with having quality child care. Income eligible for Title I programs. A parent under the age of 18 when the child was born, and that is just one parent. Limited English proficiency for the child and the parents. Immediate family member has a history of substance abuse and or addiction. And a parent has a history of abuse or neglect. Children who are in foster care at the time of enrollment. We do have foster waivers that we'll talk about that allows you to go over your ratio. Has an incarcerated parent, and this must be during the lifetime of the child. Is in custody or living with a family member other than the mother or the father. Has a family member, immediate family member, arrested or convicted of drug-related offenses, and this must have occurred during the child's lifetime. So this could be mother, father, brother, sister, um, just an immediate family member. Has a parent activated for military duty away from their home base? And this must be a minimum of 30 days duration. And this must be at the time of enrollment. Or if they have a deployment letter saying that, the child's enrolling in August, October, the parent is going to be sent overseas or away from their home base. And when I say away from the home base, I mean the parent is going to have to be living separate from the family. Okay. And then also, if a child is homeless or family is homeless, as defined by the McKenty-Vento Act, which ensures the right of students to go to school even when they are homeless or don't have a permanent address. So work with your school district's McKenty-Vento liaison. I believe they have documents that they use when they verify that a child is homeless, because there is a difference, and we did have this happen, where families are doubled up, but it's, not the family living with the grandparent or aunt and uncle because they're at this time they can't afford their own living situation. And a situation where grandma or aunt and uncle is living with them, that they are providing the house and paying the bills and all of that. So the McKenty-Vento liaison should be able to help you with that when enrolling children. Okay, so associated eligibility requirements. A child must reside within the boundaries of the program's local school district. However, you may accept children outside of their local area once you've exhausted your waiting list and your recruiting efforts. This does not apply to children out of the state. So I know we've got some programs like Texarkana and Mammoth Springs and Memphis. We have several programs that are just right there on the border. And unfortunately, no, you cannot accept those children who live just, they may just live right around the block. But these are Arkansas state funds that need to go to Arkansas children. So eligible children cannot be denied enrollment or be dismissed due to non-payment of fees associated with another daycare program. So if you have a before or an after care and the family is late on their payments or they're, in arrears, you cannot dismiss them from ABC because of that. You can dismiss them from the before and after care, but not from the ABC program. Eligible children cannot be denied enrollment or dismissed based on toileting training issues. We've had a couple of instances of that, and that is not allowed. Staff should be helping to train those children to use the potty. Oh, and working with parents and help the parents so you guys can be consistent on what you do when toilet training. All right, so we've talked about the family a lot, so let's define what a family is. So that is the child to be enrolled in the program, biological or adoptive parents, and this is parents that they may or may not be married, but they're living in the household together. Legal step parents, not boyfriend or girlfriend. This is they've been married, they have a license, they're a legal step parent. We need their documentation if you're using income. All siblings related by birth or marriage to the child enrolled, as long as they're living in the household at least 50% of the time, and all foster siblings that they may have. So the child application needs to clearly indicate the number in the family and the number in the household. It needs to have a list of all of the household members' names and their relation to the enrolling child. And that way we can verify the number in the family so we can use that when calculating income.
Hey, Michelle, we've got a question
Okay.
about the family unit. So, what if the child lives with dad for 4 days and mom for 3 days? So, if there's split custody situation.
I think that's going to be a question that you need to
Yeah.
email us
So,
about. Yeah.
what we would do is we would utilize the information of the parent that's filling out the application. So if mom is filling out the application to enroll the child, you would use that information. If it's dad, then you would use the dad's information. Since they live separately, we wouldn't need the income verification or eligibility for both families. We would just need it for the parent that's applying, and that's what we would utilize. So that's why it's so important to fill out the information on the application. Um, so if there's other people that live in the household with dad and he's the one that's filling out that application, then you would just document that. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay.
So eligibility and data management. So if a classroom has children from different funding sources, so you may have some non-ABC and some ABC children. If there is one ABC child in that classroom, all children must be entered into COPA. That way we can tell exactly how many children are in that classroom. When enrolling a child in COPA, use the funding source ABC, non-ABC, or other applicable funding sources as the program model for the child. And if this is something new that we're doing this year, if an eligibility factor other than income is used, please document that in the eligibility information section of the child's data sheet. If you're using income, then you don't have to check something on that eligibility information. This is just, and let me show you what we're talking about. So here you go. So when you're filling out the child's application in COPA, under additional eligibility information, we have custom eligibility point information. And when you open that up, please do not select all. Please, please, please don't select all. We run reports where we're asked how many teen parents are there, how many children with low birth weight. So just check one if the child is qualified using something other than income. Okay, so let's go to some commonly asked questions. Do I have to qualify a child every year? No. Once a child qualifies, they remain eligible for as long as they remain in your program. Please keep the original qualification document in the child's folder. Now, this may be changing. There have been discussions about requalifying every 2 years. But right now, as of next year, you do not have to requalify children that are already in your program. Do adopted children automatically qualify? No, they must have a qualifying factor. A children who has a hearing or vision, do they qualify? Yes, if they qualify for IDEA services. So they have to meet the IDEA qualifications in order to enroll for ABC using vision and hearing impairment. All right, so let's talk a little bit about dual eligibility. So what does that mean? A dually enrolled child is a child that's enrolled in both an ABC Center-based program and an ABC HIPPY or PAT program. So they're getting services from both ABC programs. These children must have two qualifying factors, one of which must be income. And the same qualifying factor cannot be used by both programs. So you guys, it is very helpful if you put on your application if asking if this child is in a home visiting program, HIPPY or PAT, and that way you know to work with your local home-based educators to find out what factor they used when they qualified that child. A lot of children, they may start PAT at birth. So they may have qualified that child for birth using income, and then they come to your program at 3, and we need a different qualifying factor if the parent is choosing to keep the child in both programs. You cannot tell the parents to disenroll from HIPPY. It is a parent's choice whether they want to stay with HIPPY, whether they want to do both. Just know that there are two qualifying factors that you need. One must be income. And so both qualifying factors need to be kept in the child's files. Because when we pull up Betty Sue and we see that she's duly enrolled, but we're auditing your program, we still need to know what are her two qualifying factors. Okay, so qualifying for dual, the family's income must be less than 200% of the federal poverty level. You can use any of those previous eligibility requirements that we talked about, plus a single parent or a parent who cannot read. Those are just the two additional for dual qualifying only. So again, income, one of the previous eligibility requirements, single parent or parent who cannot read. Okay, so the program's responsibility. Again, we talked about this. If you have a child come in and they're enrolled in a center and they're enrolling now into HIPPY, or if they're in HIPPY and they're enrolling into a center-based, then you must make sure that you are working with that other program so you both have the dual qualifying documents. Okay, and this is not who enrolled the child into COPA first. This is who enrolled the child. So that's why it's so important to have that on your application or to ask questions. Is this child in a home-based ABC program? All right, so if you are duly enrolling a child, you need to contact COPA support so we can make sure that that child is enrolled both in ABC and in HIPPY. Their program model has to say dual. Okay. If a dual child leaves the program, then you need to contact us to terminate from your program, because if you terminate that child, it terminates them from both the home-based program and the ABC center-based. So please contact us if you're going to be terminating a child that has a program model showing that they are duly enrolled. And then if you're using a qualifying factor other than income, then please check that eligibility information section that we just talked about on the child's data sheet. All right, I think this is a good time for a break. Oh, oh, there's my clock. Okay, so let me see if I can. It is 10:12. Let's come back at um 10:25. We'll give y'all, well, no, since we've got a timer, let's do 10:22. So we're gonna do a 10-minute break. So that way our timer is synced with our break. Okay. Oh, and my timer's not working. All right, guys. There we go. There we go. All right. We'll see you in a little bit. Okay, give a couple minutes for everybody, or not a couple minutes, but a few seconds for everybody to get back and we'll restart the training. All right, I hope everybody's feeling refreshed and ready to start. So now we're going to be talking about documenting eligibility. So we have discussed what those eligibility factors are, and now we're going to tell you what documents that you're going to need to include. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is income documentation. So determining income eligibility. So when you're using income to determine eligibility, again, the family cannot exceed 200% of the federal poverty level. Now, we do have a sliding fee scale for those that are 200 to 250% of the federal poverty level, and that will need to be marked in their program option. In a two-parent household, both incomes must be used in determining eligibility. And again, those are biological parents, unmarried, and living in the same household. Let's see, income of step parents must be obtained. And use the number in the family, not the number in the household. So again, the number in the family, we're talking about biological parents, the child, biological siblings of the child in the household, legal step parents, if step children, step siblings are living in the household at least 50% of the time, then they can also be included. And then also foster children. All right, so we're looking at earned income. So the most recent documents dated within 30 days of the date the application was signed. We must have pay stubs equaling to 30 days of income. We're going to use holiday, vacation, and sick pay. At this time, we're not using overtime or tips. Do not use child support, disability, or Social Security. So if someone is on disability or Social Security, and that is all the income that they are receiving, they need to provide a notarized statement of no earned income. We do use employment. We're going to be looking at the gross pay. And then on income tax forms, we look at adjusted gross income. All right, so acceptable documentation continues. We're looking at pay stubs, W-2 forms, federal income tax forms, Schedule C or Schedule F for self-employed only, and notarized letter by a parent, or if it's an employer's statement, that needs to be notarized by the employer. So notarized statements, no earned income. If an employer is stating that they pay by cash and they pay $400 a week, that needs to be signed by the employer and notarized by the employer. And statements that are not notarized will not be accepted. Okay, so we're going to talk about calculating income because there are a few formulas that you do need to use. We can provide an income eligibility worksheet. This is on our website under the forms and documents. And this takes you step by step. And we look at paid weekly. I know there's excuse me, I'm looking at this. So with ABC, we look at yearly income, and we do that based on month-to-month payment. So I know with SRA, they look at the monthly total. We look at the yearly total. So once you've got the pay stubs and you enter those in, it gives you a formula of how to calculate if they're paid weekly, bi-weekly, twice weekly, or monthly to get the yearly income. So with a weekly pay stub, you're going to look at the gross amount from each check. You're going to add those 4 checks together to get the monthly pay. Then you're going to divide that by 4 to get the average. And this is where one of those formulas come in. So it's the average weekly pay times 4.334 to get the average monthly pay. And then you're going to take that amount and you're going to multiply it by 12 to get the yearly gross income. So again, you can see how this document would assist greatly in trying to calculate things. So if you're calculating a bi-weekly pay stub, you're going to add together the gross amount from each check, and then that will give you the monthly pay. You're going to take that monthly pay and you're going to divide it by 2 to get the average bi-weekly pay. You're going to take that amount and you're going to multiply it by 2.167. And this will give you the average. And then you're going to multiply that average by 12 to get the yearly gross. Okay. So if someone's being paid twice monthly, it's almost the same. Hold on one moment. Oh, okay, I did. Except there's really not a formula for this one. If it's twice monthly, you just add the checks together, get the monthly payment and divide that by 2. Then you're going to multiply that back by 2 and multiply it by 12. And then for a monthly payment, you just take the gross amount of the check and you multiply that by 12 to get the yearly gross income. So that one is very straightforward, thankfully. All right, so some commonly asked questions. Do siblings enrolling for the next school year automatically qualify, or do I have to get new income documentation? So siblings do not automatically qualify. They need their own application, and then if it is for a different year, then you need to get new eligibility documentation for them. Can we use the sliding fee scale to enroll children? Yes. Some programs do not like to use the sliding fee scale because they are in charge of getting the amount that is offset by what I just had someone. Can you guys see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So sliding fee scale. With that, ABC would pay a certain percentage, and then the program is in charge of getting that remaining percentage. How you get that percentage, what you use that money for, that is up to your program. However, you cannot terminate a child if the parents are not paying that sliding fee amount. So that's why a lot of programs don't like to use that. Okay.
And I'll just add when we're talking about sliding fees. So I did add a link directly. It is on our website. It's the updated numbers for 26, 27. And at the bottom, that's where you'll find that sliding fee scale. So if you're in a community where you have a lot of families that are really close to qualifying based on income, but maybe they're just a little bit over and they're in that 212% of the federal poverty, that would put them owing you about $102 a month for the program. And so, although you would be responsible for collecting that money from the parent, that is a good way to up enrollment if you're seeing a decline or you're having a hard time getting families enrolled because maybe they're really close to that income guideline. But I did put that in the chat. So if you need to take a look at that or if you have any questions, just let us know.
Thank you, Kayla. Okay, so let's talk about some common scenarios. Both biological parents live in the household with the child, but they are not married. Again, you will need to count both parents and the child in the family unit, and you'll need income from both parents. Mom and her boyfriend and their 2 children live with the child. The enrolling child has a different father. So there are 5 people in the household, but we're only going to count 4 of them. We're going to count the mom, the child, and the biological related siblings to the child. So the children share a mother, even though they do have different fathers. And we would only use mom's income for this. Okay. A child lives with the grandparents, an aunt, 2 cousins, and mom. Mom is the only provider. There are 7 people in the household, but we only count the mother and the child in the family unit, and we're only going to use mom's income. Parents have joint custody. Use the information and income of whoever enrolls the child. And I think that's kind of what we talked about earlier, what Kayla talked about. You're just going to use the income of the parent that's enrolling the child. Dad and stepmother live with the child. Her children live with them on the weekends. So we're only going to count the father, the stepmother, and the child for the household and family unit. And we're only going to use the father's and the stepmother's income. We're not going to count her children because they're only there on the weekend. And they're not in the household at least 50% of the time. Okay, so that takes care of income documentation. So now we're going to look at the other eligibility factors and what documentation you need to use for those. So we talked a little bit about developmental screenings and a developmental delay used as a qualifying factor. So what we need is a screening report or a letter of service from the Early Childhood Special Education Program. You can also use the IFSP or an IEP. You can use a letter of the IEP conference decision or a psychological assessment documenting a developmental delay. Again, this child must be tested by the co-op or special education and qualify for an IFSP. but it doesn't matter if the parents refuse an IEP, the child still would qualify for ABC. Okay, so parents without a high school diploma or GED, and again, that is both parents. A letter from their high school stating they did not graduate. You could also use the high school transcript sent from the school. A letter from a GED program stating the parent is attending, or a notarized statement from the parent stating they did not graduate. All right, low birth weight, below 5 pounds, 9 ounces. Sometimes that's on the birth certificate. You can also accept a letter from the hospital or doctor verifying the birth weight. Hospital card or announcement sent home from the hospital. Not on here is just like a hospital record that documents, at the time of birth, the child was below 5 pounds and 9 ounces. Okay, children eligible for services under IDEA. So that's a child that has an IEP or individual education plan. The letter of an IEP or an IFSP conference decision. Evaluation or programming conference decision form. A letter from the educational cooperative or special education. And then also medical documentation. Parents under the age of 18 years at birth. You can use the child's birth certificate. I believe all of them that I have seen they've had the parent's birth date on those as well as the child's birth date. You can use the birth certificate of the parent plus the birth certificate of the child. We'll also accept the parent's driver's license plus the child's birth certificate if it doesn't have the parent's birth date on those. All right, so limited English proficiency. How do you document that? You can use a letter from a social worker, a letter from the Bureau of Citizenship, a parent's green card, a letter from an adult education program that the parent is enrolled in an adult education class. And then if one of your employees assists the parent with filling out a screening or an application, they can submit a notarized letter stating what they observed. Okay, so an immediate family member, and this is parent, step parent, or siblings, has a history of substance abuse or addiction. So a letter from the doctor or treatment center treating the family member, a letter from a social worker assisting the family, or law enforcement or court records documenting. Okay, and so a parent has a history of abuse or neglect, and that you can use documentation from DHS, law enforcement, or court records. And then for a foster child, court records, documentation from DHS, I believe they get a med alert that can also be used. For an incarcerated parent, and this must be during the lifetime of the child, you can use documentation from law enforcement, the court, or the Department of Corrections website. Okay. So for children in the custody of or living with a family member other than the mother or father, court records or documentation from DHS, a notarized statement from a family member that a child is living with them, and neither parent is residing in the household. Okay. And then immediate family member, parent, step parent, or sibling. It has that has an arrest a record or convicted of a drug-related offense. So you can use records from law enforcement, court documents, documentation from Department of Corrections website, and you can also use newspaper articles. Okay. A parent activated for military duty away from their home base, and this must be for a minimum of 30 days. So you can use deployment orders or a letter from the Department of Defense notifying that the parent will be deployed. And then we have parents of children who are homeless as defined by the McKenty-Vento Act. So a residency form signed by the parent and the McKenty-Vento liaison. A notarized statement that they are living in an emergency shelter or transitional living programs, staying temporarily with friends or relatives due to inadequate housing, or they're staying in a motel, campground, or cars, or other temporary housing. Now, all of this information, it can be found in our program guide. We can also send you this information if you would like. And our program guide can be found on the ABC website. All right, so what happens if you enroll in an eligible child? The agency will be placed on a compliance plan. The agency may have to pay back the funds, and future funding may be affected. Okay, so next, Kayla is going to talk about child waivers.
Yes, we are going to start talking about child waivers. I did want to answer a question I saw about uploading documents. So I know we had a lot of questions about this, and Brandy Nichols had also put it in the chat. And so we talked a lot about uploading your records, and we ask that you only upload documents if they're requested by one of our staff for auditing purposes, or if we're asking you to upload documents such as your final disclosure audit or your expenditure. The reason is that COPA only has so much space. So if all 23-ish thousand children have every file uploaded, we would run out of space for documents. And so that's why we ask that you don't upload documents unless you're asked to do that.
Oh, and
Okay.
Kayla, I am going to apologize. I believe this section is set on a timer. I had forgotten about that. So I may be kind of flipping back and forth trying to get this timer to stop.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so there are two types of child waivers, a kindergarten and foster waiver. So a kindergarten waiver are meant for children that don't meet the eligibility requirements that are kindergarten eligible. So if you have a child that is age eligible to go to kindergarten, however, the parent is requesting that they remain in the preschool for another year. I will say that kindergarten waivers, we do accept them and we do go over them. And typically there needs to be very extensive reasons where we would make an exception to allow a kindergarten eligible child to remain in preschool for an additional year. And we'll talk about those in just a second. The foster child waiver Is a request to exceed your ratio or add an additional temporary slot that accommodates a income foster child and coming into your program when all of your slots are full. So, for example, if you only have 20 slots, but you have emergency situation where there's a child that's been placed in foster care, they're needing care in your community, we will allow you to go over to 21 for a temporary amount of time. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so the kindergarten waiver, as we talked about, the child must exhibit multiple risk factors which impair the child's learning and development, but doesn't meet the eligibility criteria necessarily. So these are only approved in situations where there's significant multiple risk factors. Sometimes those can be um, several medical risk factors or developmental risk factors, and we're going to ask for lots of documentation. So we do have a waiver request form. It is on our website that we've shared out a couple of times, and you'll need to complete the full form. There will be signature and documents that we will send when you are requesting that waiver that we'll send to you, so you know exactly what you need to attach, and you'll send back to us through email. So there's going to be the form that you're going to fill out, birth record, income. So this is regardless of the reason for the waiver. You'll need to collect that income. Verification that all of your eligible children are served. So that means you don't have a waiting list. Multiple supportive documents of risk factors or delays. Again, if this is a medical reason, if there's a child that has several disabilities, there is a pretty extensive reason why this child would benefit from an additional year. And then all that information will be emailed back to us at COPA Support. So when you reach out, we'll make sure that you have that information on where to reply back to. These waivers are considered on a case-by-case basis. So when we ask you for those supportive documents, make sure that you're sending them back. We will review them, and we must give you approval before you enroll that child into the program. So please remember that you're not compliant if you enroll a child that should be going to kindergarten and you've not received approval from us. And just because you submit the waiver, it does not guarantee that that child will be approved. So for foster care waivers, this is again temporary approval. And so if you have 20 slots, there's one child that needs to come in, we will allow you to go to 21. However, we do require that if a child drops from your program and you're back down to 19, you're enrolling that foster child, you can no longer go to 21. So as soon as you have open slot, you fill that in with that child. And just a reminder, we are waiving the ABC maximum ratio. However, you cannot exceed your classroom capacity under licensing standards. So if you are only licensed with licensing at 20 capacity, you can't go to 21. You would need to reach out to your licensing specialist for any changes in your classroom capacity that you're licensed for. And then your foster waiver will also allow you to receive additional payment for that child. So having that waiver lets us know we're giving you approval for this, and we're also going to pay you for that child. Those waiver requests are again available on our website. We'll need you to complete the entire section of the form. There's a couple of things that we'll get from you to document that the child is in foster care, and then you'll email that back to us. And again, so the documentation, there's a couple of different things. Sometimes it might be a court order. It may be the MediAlert packet that you receive or the foster care family receives. Then there may also be a foster home agreement, letter from the family service worker. A lot of these situations are very quick. So we have several different things that we allow as documentation. we're not going to ask for that specific documentation from you. You'll need to retain it on file, but we're not going to ask you to send that sensitive documentation to us. So if it is approved, then your waiver request and any documentation will be uploaded to the child eDocs within COPA. And I see a question. If you're approved for the waiver for foster and the child is reunited before a slot becomes available, are they able to remain on the waiver or are they no longer eligible for services? So, great question. If the child is no longer in foster care and there's not a slot available, then they would be removed from the waiver. So you would just need to let us know. That is specifically just for you going over your allowed slots for that temporary service. And just to note, as we talk about the kindergarten waiver, so just quickly, I'll add this. So when you are talking about your work sampling, if you have a child that is remaining for an additional year, you would still need to treat that child just as if it was their last P4 year in work sampling. So yes, they would need to complete work sampling. We still would need that data. And I think that if you have any questions specifically about a kindergarten waiver, reach out to us and ask. Those are rare. So it has to be a very, very, very critical situation in order for us to approve a kindergarten waiver. It can't just be because parent feels like the child will benefit from another year in preschool. We do very few of those a year. And so I'm going to see if there's any other questions real quickly before we get into child records. Okay. Tammy, if the child is private pay, so if we're not talking about an ABC child, that would be up to your program if you allow them to be private pay. You do need to make sure that you get with the child's family and their school district. There is some steps that the families have to take with the school district to notify them that they will not be attending kindergarten. You would also need to make sure that you would be licensed. And work with your licensing specialist. Okay. So we are going to, again, we're going to move into the next section. And if you have any questions about waivers, again, please feel free to reach out. We're here to support you. So if you have questions, just let us know. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle and talk about child records.
Taylor, we had one more question.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me see. Okay, I see. If you have a summer child, so if they're kindergarten eligible, then you would have to receive a kindergarten waiver in order for you to enroll them. However, if they are not hitting that deadline, if they are not kindergarten eligible, then yes, you can enroll them. And we had another question about uploading the application. So no, you don't need to upload any documents to COPA other than just the child information and family information that you're going to enter manually into the system. You do not need to upload anything unless it is requested by our office. I'm going to give just a few more minutes to see if there's any other questions before we get into the next section. I don't see anything. Jennifer, right. So unless you're asked to upload any specific documentation, you don't need to. We would ask that if we were doing a desk audit or if there is something specific like with a waiver, we would ask you to upload that documentation. But as you're accepting those children and you are collecting birth certificate, income, all of that information, you do not need to upload that into COPA. A great question about children returning for a second year. So you do not need to re-enroll, re-certify that family. So you don't need necessarily a separate entire application. However, I will say that best practice would be to do kind of a re-enrollment application, a shorter application, just where you get verification that there hasn't been any changes like address, phone number, those types of things.
How would I go about doing that?
You can create your own if you want. You can use the same application that you use for original enrollment and just have them all update that, but you wouldn't necessarily need new information other than your things like if they're due for their immunizations, if they're due for their physical, those types of things.
Okay, what about income? Does that need to be updated as well?
No, not if they're already in the program.
Yeah,
Okay.
when
Go
we're
ahead.
monitoring, we will look at the date of the application and then we will look at the sliding fee scale from that year when we're verifying documentation and eligibility.
So Jennifer, I see a question about CCDF students who can attend this year as 4-year-olds. Do they automatically transfer? So no, if they were not an ABC child last year, they do have to certify for ABC this year. And if you have like specific questions, if you had federal pre-K before and you're transitioning only to ABC and you have specific questions about any families and eligibility, feel free to email me or any of the team. You can send it to COPA support as well, and we can take a look into those individual children if you have any questions. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and start about enrollment documentation. So the following documentation must be obtained before a child can attend. So you would need a completed application with your enrollment date. So make sure you have that original application, up-to-date immunizations or an exemption form, birth certificate, and then your eligibility documentation. So if that's income, you would have your income documentation. And again, children enrolled without eligibility documentation are not considered eligible. So when we're reaching out to you, monitoring, and we're doing a desk audit with you, make sure that you're sending all your documents back so that we can make sure we're giving you credit for that eligibility documentation piece. Okay, and so maintaining those child records, the birth certificate, hospital record, or other official documentation, your eligibility documents, your completed application that has been signed and dated, any emergency information, including non-parental contact and medical information. So making sure you have your emergency contacts updated. And then your parents' authorization for medical care, pickup. So you'll need your who's authorized to pick up, and then also authorization for any field trips if your program participates in field trips. A statement signed by the parent verifying receipt of the handbook, and then completed health forms, immunization records, completed developmental screening, and then your teacher and parent observations and summaries of parent-teacher conferences. If the child has a failed screener, whether that is an internal screener that you're doing like an ASQ, or if they have a failed screening from a private therapy group or any other failed screening, you must make a referral to the special education or LEA department. So there's a referral decision, and if the child is, above 3, it'll be an IEP. If they're below 3, it's an IFSP that has our goals, objectives, is applicable. Now, if the parent decides that they want to use a different therapy group, maybe someone closer in the community, that's fine. You'll just need to make sure that you retain that referral information. So you need to document that. You'll have that from the special education department, that you've made that referral. Hey, this child has failed that ASQ, and document that, put it in the child's file. Your parent-teacher conference summaries. So typically this is where you're using that work sampling summary report. We're going to talk a little bit about work sampling and OUNCE later on, but you'll have the parent signature and date, so you need to retain that. Work sampling documentation. So this is usually kept separate. Most of the time, this is kept in the classroom with a child's portfolio, where you may have paper, electronic samples of children's work and other teacher observations. Okay, so health and developmental screenings. We're going to talk next about that. And when we talk about health screenings, part of the ABC program is not only those physical well child checkups, but also vision screenings and hearing screenings. The growth assessment is often incorporated in the physical, where the doctor is notating height, weight, those types of things. Incoming new students' physicals are current if performed within the last 12 months. Any parents of students that do not have a physical for their child is required to provide one within 45 days of their first attendance. So if they do not have one, you'll want to work with that parent and make sure they're getting that well child checkup completed within that 45 days. Returning students, those health screenings are good for 2 years. And all vision, hearing, physicals, and growth assessments must be entered into COPA within 60 days. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the developmental screening process. All children shall receive a developmental screening no later than 45 calendar days from the first day of attendance. Screening shall be administered annually unless the child has a current IFSP or IEP in place. Children that are identified must be referred to special education within 7 calendar days of the date of screening. So I just mentioned this before. If you're using something like an ASQ and maybe your teacher is doing the screening, if you've identified that there is any type of delay, you need to make sure that you're referring to special education within 7 days. Go back 1 second, Michelle. And just as a reminder, when we talk about children with special needs or children that have an IEP or an IFSP, that you must comply with state and federal laws. Okay, so the developmental screening, you will see a list. It is in our program guide, and there are options also in COPA, so you'll see that list. But the screenings that are allowed are there so that you can go in and view those. But they also have to fall under these areas. So vocabulary, visual, language, speech development, fine, gross motor, social skills, and developmental milestones. So some infant and toddler screenings are the ages and stages, which is the ASQ3, Battelle, Brigance.
And this is not a complete list. This is just ones that stood out that were easy to find. But there are other screenings.
Mhm.
And again, I think this may be on a timer. I apologize.
So why are we screening? We want to identify children who potentially need services. We want to identify a need for any revision of curriculum planning, classroom setup, your management strategies, and assist in identifying areas where a child may need individualized attention. As we all know, if you are part of early childhood, you know early intervention is so crucial. And so we want to identify those children early and get the necessary referrals sent. Okay, so the program may complete the screening or arrange with your local co-op to complete screenings, but the responsibility to make sure that it is completed is with your program. So your screening should have the date, the child's name, child's date of birth, the screener's name, the score, and the outcome, whether it's a pass, fail, a rescreen, or a referral. And then the following information will need to be entered into COPA for each child within 60 calendar days of when that child begins your program. So you'll see when you're entering into the screeners, there will be a place for your screening date, the instrument, so that's the screener that is used, the result, the decision, the rescreen due date, and the performed by, which if it's your teacher, it would be your teacher. The rescreen due date will populate when you're running reports. And Michelle's tomorrow, we're going to talk about tips and different reports ran in COPA. That rescreen due date is so important because when you run those reports, it's going to tell you who's coming up that needs their developmental screening completed again. It's going to give you that due date on those reports.
Yes, I'm not sure if it's actually in the PowerPoint. I don't remember, but health screenings are good for 2 years, and developmental screenings are good for 1 year.
And I saw a question about the dial. Yes, that is an approved screener.
Yeah, again, that list that I provided there, those were infant and toddler ones because not all the screenings include infant and toddler, but I found those that are pretty popular when used.
Yes, and Sarah, that's correct. So if they already have an IEP, you do not need to rescreen using like the dial 4. Okay, so again, referral must be made within 7 calendar days upon the failing of a developmental screening. So if you choose to rescreen a child, it must be within 45 days of the original screening. Rescreen must be documented on that screener, and then you'll need to select rescreen in COPA as well. So the new developmental screening must be entered into COPA as well. So if you have a child and you're doing the screening and you feel like this is not a referral, this child just needs another week to acclimate to the classroom and then we'll rescreen. Maybe there's some fear or maybe they just started and they're not used to being in the setting. You can have that rescreen option. Just make sure that it's within 45 days of the original screening. So referrals can be made at any time. A possible delay may have not existed at the time of your original screening. If there are behavioral, social, emotional issues that impacts the child's development, if something happened midway through the school year, don't feel like, oh, this was just the beginning of the year thing that we did and now we're done. If you feel like there is something that needs to be referred, please do that at any time.
And Kayla, I think this might be a really good time to talk about developmental delay and referring to the co-op when enrolling. So do not request that from your parents, that they send their children to the co-op to get tested so they may qualify for an ABC program. The co-op cannot handle, they have a limited number of people and they cannot handle, 30 people coming at a time saying, well, the program said I need to send my child for a screening, so maybe they can get in the ABC program.
Yes. If you have a family that comes in and you see that there is, something like maybe there needs to be a referral, there needs to be a screening done, go ahead and do that. And I just saw a question pop up, which is going right into our next slide about children that are not 3. So if you are new to serving infants and toddlers, this is where we're going to talk about where to refer. And so if your co-op serves 3 to 5, typical. But if you have infants and toddlers, we do have a special education entity that's called First Connections, and that is for children that are birth to 3. And then typically either the LEA, like the school district, or the co-op, whoever is in your area, they'll be the person that you refer to for 3 to 5. And if you go on the OEC website, you can do the referral process, I believe, online with First Connections. And I will make sure that we put that link in the chat box as well.
And just a side note that referral to a private therapy group cannot replace a referral to the special education.
I think that was one of the questions that I just saw.
So if a child comes in receiving services from a private entity, you need to screen them. And then if they fail, refer them to the co-op. At that time, the co-op will present their legal rights to services from the school districts, from the state. And at that time, the parent can choose whether they want to continue private services or they want to continue with the co-op.
And I saw a couple of questions, so we'll go through the documentation and then I'll go back and answer any questions if this does not cover that. So referral documentation to your co-op or district. So that would be a referral form, an email that you've sent to that contact. If the screening was performed by the co-op or the district special education, the screening itself can be used as documentation. And I think that we also, when we're entering into COPA, yeah, there it is. So referral information. So you're going to have the date that you referred, who was requesting it, the referral reason, the screening, and who it was referred to. So you can document in COPA who you sent that referral to. So for any ABC child who also receives special education services, the staff from the education co-op or school district should have access to the child at mutual agreeable times during the child's program day in order to provide those services. So we cannot deny entry to someone that's coming in to provide speech therapy services for that child. There needs to be time during the day that they can come in and give those services to the child. And, we say mutual agreeable time. So we'll work with that special education therapist, whoever is coming in to work with that child, and carve out what works best for both of you, what works best for their schedule, for the child, and for the program. If a child in question has a disability and is in the process or has been identified under IDEA, the ABC program must follow those special education rules and regulations governing suspension and/or expulsion. So if a child is demonstrating challenging behavior, we ask that you consult with behavior help. You can submit a referral online. And we also ask that you work with that special education program regarding classroom modifications and interventions. So, if necessary, intervention ensures that children have access to professional services. So, when you're making those referrals to education co-op behavior specialists, if they're available, there is also the support network for early autism identification. There is a community mental health center and private therapists. Those are options as well. So for any child that requires intervention services of special education, you should collaborate with those professionals, make sure that they have access. We do have a early childhood special education portion of our website on OEC. I put the link in the chat and we'll make sure that everyone has access to that. There is lots of information and resources for early intervention, for child special education, for early childhood, for both birth to 3 to 5 different areas. So make sure that you have those resources. So an IFSP, IEP, those are two different terms for disability information. So in that document, there is going to be the primary condition that when you're entering it into COPA, there's going to be a drop down. There will be a diagnosis date, and then you'll select qualified and then disability status from the drop down menu. You don't need to upload the IFSP or IEP into COPA unless you are asked for that. So if we are doing a desk audit and we need to see the IEP or IFSP for a child that we are auditing, then we would ask you to upload that. But please do not upload it unless it's requested. A lot of times those are very large documents, so we would probably not even ask you for the full document. There's only certain pages that we may even ask for.
So required child information in COPA. I think this is where I take over. Oh, well, actually, this is just the last screen of the child information. So, oh my goodness, what just happened here?
While Michelle's going back to that, I'm gonna go ahead and put in the chat while we're talking about all of these required fields and things that you're filling out in COPA. So we have a really great resource. It is a required fields document that we have on our website. I'm going to put it in here right now. This portion of our website, I highly recommend that you bookmark, save it to your browser, and visit it frequently. So we put helpful documents here and we update them pretty consistently. The required information document is going to be very helpful for you, especially if you're a new coordinator. When you get into COPA, there are tons and tons of fields that we do not require you to fill out. It may have a red asterisk next to it and it may look like it's required, but it is not required for ABC. So that document is going to help you. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you from entering information you don't need to enter unless you want to. And it is going to walk you through exactly what you need to input from your child application. A lot of programs build their application around those required fields so that it's pretty quick and easy for you to go through and type out exactly what your information is on your application. So visit our forms and documents page. Again, there's lots of different information. You're going to find all your waivers. You're going to find your enrollment checklist, health screening documentation. All of that information is there. And so if there's anything that you need that you can't find, reach out to us, but that will be very helpful when you're going through and entering in your required information. And I think here, we do have a couple of different tabs that we're talking about in COPA. So when you're entering attendance, your agency site or class tab is there. When you're going to enter your physical information, it's going to be like the well child checkup. It's under a medical tab. Growth assessment is under growth and nutrition. Your vision and hearing is under that same medical tab. And then there's a developmental tab for your screenings and a referral tab for referrals. So when you're looking for where to put in your IEP or IFSP, you're going to find that under disability. And then child documents. So when you're going to upload documentation for us, there is a tab under eDocs for your child's eDocs. And if you're a new coordinator and you're new to navigating COPA, I think Michelle talked a little bit about this earlier. We do have some COPA training videos already on our website. There are also some COPA training videos in the system itself under the support tab. You can go through those tutorials. And we are also in the process of recording some ABC specific COPA training videos for you as well. There's been a couple of COPA updates over the last year, some new reports, changes to reports. Michelle touched on some of the search features at the beginning, but we're going to record some updated training videos for you all, and they'll be posted at that same link that I shared in the chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think this is a good time for lunch.
We are now going to cover staff qualifications and professional development. An ABC program coordinator or site director without teaching responsibilities shall meet the minimum licensing requirements for a center director and complete director's orientation within a reasonable time period, subject to the availability of training. Each HIPPY program serving at least 160 families must have one full-time coordinator, holding a minimum of a bachelor's degree in education, social work, sociology, psychology, or related field. Those coordinators without a related degree must obtain at least 12 college course hours in early childhood. Programs with more than 250 children must also have at least one part-time coordinator who holds a minimum of an associate's degree in early childhood education, social work, psychology, or related field. Coordinators shall also meet additional job requirements as described in the HIPPY United States Coordinator Job Description. HIPPY coordinators must attend National HIPPY Pre-Service Training and receive certification. All PAT coordinators must attend the PAT Institute training and obtain either a parent educator certificate or an administrator's certificate. Each program must have a certified parent educator who may also serve as coordinator. What is the difference in a lead teacher and classroom teacher? A lead teacher is expected to coordinate programming, curriculum, and lesson plans with classroom teachers. For programs with multiple classrooms, you must have one lead teacher for every 3 classrooms. Lead teachers are required to have a bachelor's degree or staff qualification plan. Classroom teachers have alternate pathways such as an associate's degree or CDA. They are also eligible for a staff qualification plan. The requirements for lead teachers, classroom teachers, and infant-toddler teachers can be found in the ABC Program Guide. The Child Development Associate or CDA credential is a popular choice for continuing education as it can be completed online. HIPPY and PAT educators must meet the international affiliation requirements. Please reach out to your program administrator for questions related to visiting home-based educators. Programs replacing a teacher or paraprofessional during the year, including those taking an indefinite leave of absence, shall consult with the department on specific qualifications needed. Next, we will discuss professional development. Center-based programs are required to create and update a professional development plan annually. Teachers must participate in 30 hours of professional development annually. Paraprofessionals and administrators are required to complete 15 hours. Programs may complete these through 2 different time frames, depending on what works for your calendar. Professional development must be early childhood related. Within the first year, ABC staff should complete a class training and work sampling or ounce training. ABC staff should include on their plan to complete child development and early learning standards, pre-K relationships and behavior, and Prec Math and Science. You can find trainings on the Professional Development Registry, where you will need to create an account. OEC has created a professional development template that is available on our website to be used for planning. Home-based educators must meet the annual professional development requirements of their national and state affiliations. Next, let's talk about staff in COPA. Please enter your PDR number as your employee ID in COPA. In addition, when navigating to salary and funding, staff should be classified as child development staff and include salary and fringe with no commas. Please upload staff documents under COPA edX, including current credentials, professional development plan, contracts, any professional development not in PDR for the previous year, SQP agreement, and SQP progress reports. Next, we will cover staff qualification plans. A staff qualification plan may be requested only if a qualified staff cannot be hired. The agency must complete a staff qualification plan, SQP, and email to the COPA support mailbox. This must be done within 15 calendar days of the date of hire. Typically, an SQP must be completed within 2 years. OEC will consider extensions due to extenuating circumstances. The ABC coordinator is responsible for ensuring that each staff person makes progress each year. The Staff Qualifications Plan Progress Report form must be submitted January 30th and July 30th annually. If progress is not made, this may result in a cancellation of the Staff Qualifications Plan. Up next is classroom standards. ABC programs shall provide a minimum of 7 hours per day, 178 days per year of classroom instruction. Extended hours do not count as additional days. Any days less than the 178 days will be prorated based on the daily rate of the program established by the OEC. ABC programs shall not dismiss or expel children from the program for behavior. Programs may submit a behavior help referral through the online portal if they need assistance. This includes children that may have a suspected disability as identified under IDEA. Programs are also encouraged to reach out to OEC for guidance. In addition, ABC programs shall not dismiss children due to lack of toilet development skills. Nor may a program refuse to admit a child due to toileting development. All ABC programs shall maintain a license in good standing. Planning periods for ABC teachers shall be scheduled at a time that does not violate minimum staff-child ratios or other ABC standards. Regular and consistent attendance is expected. Now we cover ABC ratios. Any classroom with an ABC child must maintain the following ratios. For birth to 18 months, 1 teacher to 4 children. For 18 months to 3 years, 1 teacher to 7 children. For 3 years to 5 years, 1 teacher to 10 children. Classrooms with children ages 2.5 to 3 years must maintain the 1 to 7 ratio. The group size in any classroom with ABC children shall not exceed 8 children for ages birth, 18 months. 14 children for ages 18 months, 3 years. 20 children for ages 3 to 5 years. Staffing patterns shall be met for any ABC classroom. Each staff member in an infant or toddler classroom must have a CDA, dependent infant and toddler teachers to child ratios. For preschool classrooms, if you have more than 1 classroom, then there shall be 1 lead teacher for every 3 classrooms. This pattern then repeats. Staffing patterns for home-based educators are dependent on the model. For HIPPY you may not serve more than 27 families, for P you may not serve more than 40. We will now discuss child assessments, curriculum and lesson plans. Children in an ABC program shall be assessed annually to provide an indication of each child's progress towards school readiness. The current child assessment tool is work sampling and OUNCE. All ABC programs must utilize a curriculum approved by the department. Programs may continue to use their current curriculum during the 2026-2027 school year. ABC programs must have written lesson plans that align with the Child Development Early Learning Standards. Each classroom must have a daily schedule, and practices shall be developmentally appropriate. The indoor and outdoor play areas shall follow the requirements and guidance of the minimum licensing requirements for child care centers. Let's get ready for kindergarten. Provision should be made through program design to facilitate a smooth transition for those children advancing to kindergarten. Kindergarten transition plans must be in writing. Plans shall be uploaded to the agency section of COPA edX or integrated into your handbook. Some examples for a kindergarten transition plan are special events with local elementary schools, interacting with elementary staff, field trips, kindergarten readiness assessments and family resources. To wrap up, we will discuss parent and community engagement. Meaningful parent and community engagement is one of the 6 core components that serve as a basis for the ABC funding. It is critical to setting the stage for positive parent engagement experiences throughout the child's educational journey and life. Parents are key partners and positively impacts a child's success. A parent engagement plan is a written plan that addresses mechanisms for parent advice and review of programmatic plans. They include parent-teacher conferences. Programs should include an open-door policy to encourage visiting and participation in the classroom activities. Some ideas for parent involvement are parent trainings, PTA, parent surveys, etc. Each program shall utilize a parent handbook that include an attendance, tardy, and behavior guidance policy. Some other recommended items are program calendar, required plans, separation of church and state clause, policy supporting no ABC family should be required to pay fees during ABC hours, and field trip requirements. Each program shall have a written collaboration plan in conjunction with local community partners. The plan shall include a description of how cooperation with other service providers will be established and maintained, opportunities for community representative to participate in the educational activities. A memorandum of understanding with collaborative partners must also be current and available. Some partners may include public school districts, Head Start, local cooperative, local leads, other local health units, HIPPY and PAT programs. Thank you for joining us today. Please reach out to the ABC office with any questions you may have.